Vicky Bly, this is a great question. Uh, how do you shift your making style to fit someone else's idea? For example, you're assigned to make a piece of a larger part. It needs to be cohesive, but the aesthetic is radically different from your own. Mm, dude, I think that's just called being a professional. I have certainly built ugly models that the art director loved. I built the model they wanted. I wasn't the model I thought was necessarily amazing, but I built the model they wanted. Um, and that's not that hard. Your aesthetic, your aesthetics. There's two aspects to your aesthetics, to the aesthetics of creating something visual, I think. I'm just working this off the top of my head. One of them is the overall aesthetic gesture. And then the other is the aesthetic detail. Those are two totally different aesthetics. And when you're asked to match somebody's thing, you're being asked to make something look cohesive. Your goal is that the work you're doing disappears into the cohesive whole and looks like a natural part of the thing. And I think the question overemphasizes how much aesthetics are important as a model maker. And like I said, they're only like 5 or 10% of the job, but they're a really vital 5 or 10%. So working on something that isn't that great. Actually, there was a really fun thing that happened at ILM on Galaxy Quest, because Galaxy Quest involves a Star Trek-like show that is not incredibly highly produced like Star Trek, right? And I don't mean that Star Trek wasn't highly produced, but its effects can look primitive today. And they wanted the effects for that show that Galaxy Quest was to look similarly primitive. So there was a model built of the Thermian ship that was slightly crappy. And I remember Carol Bauman talking about it. I remember we all found it really funny that the shop had to build a model that looked like it had been built 50 years before. It's a fun exercise, and it's actually hard to turn off the part of your brain at ILM that makes you want to deliver everything at the highest possible quality. One of the things about ILM was when you were working there, you knew you were working there, and that the work you did would represent ILM, and your supervisor would say, make the back really nice. Don't just make the front perfect. I want the back to look good too. And when this goes out, it represents us. I don't think anyone ever said that to me directly in those words, but that was clearly an ethos there. So building something to somebody else's aesthetic is just part of the profession of making in the service of employment. Seriously. Yeah. And then every now and then, on Bicentennial Man, Norman Reynolds was the art director, who was the art director of Star Wars, was turning out these drawings, and there were some pieces for Mansky's office, one of the characters in the film, of like chrome robot parts that were hanging on the wall, and there was a neck with these gimbals and pistons, and then there was a shoulder with a clavicle. And I saw those, and I went to my supervisor, and I was like, I'm just going to show you a few pictures of stuff that I make in my personal life so I can show you that this is right up the middle for me, and I would love to tackle these two drawings. And he looked at my stuff, and he was like, oh, absolutely, go forth and build those things. And I built both of them in a couple of days. That was a really particular case of me noticing, an aesthetic that matched mine and slotting myself in with my soup to be able to deliver that. Are we taking some questions from there we go. All right. We're getting some live questions. Neuropilot asks, in those days at ILM, did you have to wire up electronics for the models you made? Yes. Well, yes and no. If that was a skill set you had, sure. I particularly love all the aspects of model making. So when I was first working on Newt and Rune's shuttle in episode 1 with Larry Tan, Larry was like, I don't know you and I don't know what you do, but we'll start detailing this ship and finishing its outside, and then we'll start cladding it and adding the detail there. And then he saw that I had some skills, so he kind of let me fly. Doug Chang started to trust me, and I got to design the inside of that payload bay from scratch, really almost as a physical model. I just sort of built it out. And then, wait a second, I lost the plot for just a sec. Right, and so then it turned out to need lighting, and I said, I can also do that. And he was like, well, let me show you how we think about lighting here at ILM. And it involved, first up, you went to the camera department and got one of these things, which is power supply. This gives you anything from 0 to 30 volts at a very, very, very high fidelity precision. So you can power up a light with this on a motion control shoot, and get it to a value that works for the director of photography, turn it off at the end of the night, turn it on the next morning, and it will go to the same value. That sounds simple. It is not. And these things were custom built by the camera department at ILM. Still one of my favorite pieces of equipment that I managed to get from there at an auction a few years after the model shop closed. Let's see here. So yeah, when you wired stuff up, actually that was one of the first times I met Grant Imahara. Was they were like, if you're going to wire stuff up, you should talk to Grant. He's our resident master at the electronics thing. And Grant had just designed this really beautiful bit of new tech that they had not used at ILM. The engine nacelles of the Thermion ship were given this sort of wave-like glow to them, and Grant designed a little IC board with blue LEDs, which at that point were quite expensive, like 10 or 15 bucks a piece. And he designed a circuit board where the animation that he built into that circuit board could be advanced one step at a time. Yeah, it was really, really neat. And I remember like all of us going to check out the board and see how it worked. And like they did a camera test to make sure it worked right. And it really did. That was neat. And so I several times got to build a ship, detail it, paint it, light it. And then the last task is to rig it on set, which is a whole different skill set. You put it on a motion control stage, and Marty Rosenberg, one of the DPs, I spent just months shooting motion control shoots with Marty and Bob and a team of model makers. And in that case, once the model's on set, all sorts of model making still is going to happen. Like Marty will line up a shot and he'll be like, okay, the ship is here and this is, he'll say, I need something back there. There's a thing. Can we get some light back there and something for that light to hit? And there were many times on motion control shoots that I ran back to the model shop to build something really quick and bring it out and like stick it in the side of the frame so it added some detail. What was the original question? Thank you so much for watching. If you'd like to support us even further, you can by becoming a tested member. Details are, of course, below, but it includes all sorts of perks, and we're building them all the time. You get advanced word and behind-the-scenes photos of some of our projects. Questions, you get to ask direct questions during my live streams, and we have some members-only videos, including the Atom real-time series of unbroken, unedited shots of me working here in the shop. They are weirdly meditative. Thank you guys so much. I'll see you on the next one.